Good afternoon, and welcome to this joint Skype presentation by the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways and the Department of Planning and Development. My name is Tim Egan, and I'm the Program Manager for Invest in Cook, a transportation grant program administered by the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways. The Invest in Cook presentation, as well as the question and answer period, will last 1 hour or less. Beginning at 2 o'clock, the Department of Planning and Development will begin their presentation on their application process for the Community Development Block Grant Program. I'm happy to be joined today by a few other members of the Invest in Cook team, including my co-presenter, Tomohiko Music, as well as Bennett Haller and Beth Davis, who are assisting with some of the technical aspects of this presentation. You should be able to see on your screen a question panel either below or to the side of the slides that we are presenting. At any time during the next hour, you may type in questions you have, and we will answer those questions at the end of the Invest in Cook presentation and before the Department of Planning and Development's presentation, which begins at 2. The questions you type in should pop up in the Q&A panel. If you have the same question as someone else that has already posted, you can click the heart icon next to it to let us know that there is more than one person asking the same question. If you did not RSVP for this event, there is a link in the Q&A panel so that we can collect your email address. Let's begin. The Invest in Cook program is a direct outcome of our long-range transportation plan connecting Cook County, which is the first LRTP we've done in over 75 years under the leadership of President Tony Preckwinkle. In order to have a full appreciation for the Invest in Cook program, I will need to provide you with some background information regarding our long-range plan. It provides the framework through which department officials plan for the future and implement sound transportation policies and investments. The plan was developed by county staff with assistance and analytical support provided by our consultant, AECOM, and their team of subcontractors. Going back to December 2011, Cook County adopted a complete streets policy. As part of this effort, the department was renamed from the Highway Department to the Department of Transportation and Highways to reinforce the need to plan for and better accommodate all transportation users. The department began looking beyond its traditional role of simply building and maintaining roadways and bridges. Our long-range transportation plan connecting Cook County was the next step in our evolution. It was launched in 2013 and approved in the summer of 2016. As it was being developed, we worked with thousands of people, gathering input from residents, business, and transportation stakeholders from all over the region to make sure we fully understood the existing needs of our communities, captured the resources that we had to work with, and identified the right priorities for the county going into the future. The final plan identified 5 priorities, which we'll discuss now. The number 1 priority is public transportation. Even though we have an extensive transit network in the Chicago metropolitan area, ridership has been stagnant over the last several decades, in part because the region invests less on a per capita basis than many international and national urban counterparts. Furthermore, Cook County has long prioritized the automobile as the preferred mode of personal travel by focusing on roads and bridges to the exclusion of other modes. Cars, of course, will continue to have a central place in serving the mobility needs of county residents. However, the county must complement its road work with transit improvements and fully embrace other modes such as walking, biking, car sharing, and ride sharing. The county fully supports the CMAP goal of doubling transit ridership by 2040, and our plan makes a commitment to expanding transit service so as to achieve it. Freight is our second priority, and an industry sector that provides us with a competitive advantage that few other regions in the continent enjoy. Our region's freight cluster supports more than 176,000 jobs that pay $12.3 billion in personal income. Metropolitan Chicago's freight cluster has the potential to add even more jobs and businesses at a faster rate than other commercial sectors, and in greater numbers than at the two other largest freight centers in the U.S. But the transportation infrastructure must enable that growth by positioning ourselves today for the opportunities of tomorrow. Some efforts already are underway, such as the CREATE program and the streamlining of truck permits, will require renewed support, revitalization, and county input. In the fall of 2018, our Board of Commissioners approved the Cooke County Freight Plan, which takes an in-depth look at the current performance of the freight system in the county and provides an action plan to implement policy, program, and project recommendations. Implementation of the freight plan's recommendations will ensure that Cooke County maintains its preeminent role in the movement of freight in North America. The third priority is equity. The purpose of transportation is to provide access to opportunities. Transportation is the way people get to jobs, school, healthcare, recreational activities, and much more. Within Cooke County, however, transportation services and the opportunities they afford have not always been and are not today still equally distributed. The inequality in access to quality transportation facilities, jobs, and services is most evident in South Cooke. Residents of South Cooke have the longest commutes and the lowest access to jobs within Cooke County. Our department completed a South Cooke mobility study in 2019 to identify specific areas for improvement in this South Cooke area, and we will expand on this study in the upcoming Cooke County Transit Plan that will be completed later this year. The fourth priority is to maintain and modernize the transportation facilities we currently have. Maintaining what exists has always been and will always be a priority for Cooke County. Failure to maintain what already exists has major negative consequences, resulting in higher operating costs, delays, and congestion. Research has shown that it is 3 to 4 times more expensive to restore pavement once it has fully degraded than to keep it in a state of good repair through regular upkeep. We must also embrace new technologies as a way to modernize our system to make more efficient use of limited resources. The fifth and final priority is to increase our investments in transportation. The Texas Transportation Institute indicates that the cost of congestion in the Chicago region is the third highest in the nation. The Metropolitan Planning Council in Chicago places the cost of congestion as high as $7.3 billion per year. To make a dent in this level of congestion, we need to be smarter about how we spend the money we already have and find more funding. Cooke County will continue to push for the reallocation of existing and new funds in ways that align with its transportation priorities at the local, state, and federal level. We will also continue applying for competitive federal and state grants to supplement local resources, and this is an area where we've had great success in the last few years. Following is a description of recent county activities that assist in implementing the vision of connecting Cooke County, including the creation of the Invest in Cooke program. As can be seen, there have been several studies done resulting in plans and the implementation of departmental policies consistent with our LRTP. Invest in Cooke, an $8.5 million grant program, is the first major initiative to come out of Connecting Cooke County, and its goal is to identify projects that advance our priorities through partnerships and collaboration with our municipalities and transportation agencies. If we want to make significant progress in the priorities we've set, then we must have a way to systematically identify, prioritize, and implement local projects that make network improvements. We also want to provide assistance on projects that have tremendous merit or potential, but might otherwise be held up or languish because of a lack of local match or lack of local staff resources. This slide demonstrates the department's evolution in recognizing the need for a new approach towards transportation investments, early implementation of this new approach, and then formal adoption. At this point, we are 3 years into our successful Invest in Cooke program and kicking off our 4th year. Regarding the development of Invest in Cooke, this program was developed with the coordination of multiple internal and external stakeholders, including the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development and the Department of Planning and Development, who are here with us today. This year, for the first time, we're going even further in our coordination efforts with planning and development through these joint workshops in an effort to assist applicants who may want to apply for both programs as may be appropriate for their project. RTA and CMAP were interviewed also for suggestions, and they reviewed the early drafts of our program materials. CMAP has also helped develop the qualitative review process and facilitates our final departmental evaluation workshop every year. Who is eligible to apply for Invest in Cooke? Local governments, including villages, townships, and cities, transit agencies, RTA, CTA, PACE, and METRA, natural resource or public land agencies such as the forest preserves, land trusts, IDNR, and private entities and non-for-profits such as CNT, MPC, ATA, TMAs, or others that do transportation service planning and coordination. Each government entity is allowed a single project application. The types of projects that can be applied for include transit, bike ped, freight, roadway, bridge improvements, new technologies such as fleet retrofits, electric charging stations, ITS, etc., corridor studies, and other projects. The list provided in the program description is not meant to be exhaustive. Projects can be applied for in any phase from planning studies to construction. This differentiates us from other funding programs like CMAP or local STP funding. We want projects to be on local facilities. This is a program we developed partially as a response to requests from municipalities for us to participate in funding on local jurisdiction roadways, and we want this to be the formal process through which we decide what local projects we will fund. That said, we won't totally disallow project proposals on county roads if that project proposal is among your organization's top priorities and it's an idea that we might not otherwise consider. We are not, however, funding employee salaries through this program. This is a project-based program, and we do not want to be in the business of funding positions. We do understand the need for staff, and for communities that can demonstrate need, we will offer staff assistance. Following is a description of the application and instructions for completing it for this year's call for projects. In designing the application process, simplicity was our primary consideration. We created a fillable PDF application form formatted similar to what the county was already using for their Cdbg applications, consisting only of checkboxes and text fields. A rough cost estimate is sufficient, not necessarily a precise engineering estimate. If, after our evaluations and interview, we are considering funding a project, that we will investigate deeper and use our staff to evaluate costs and develop an appropriate award amount. No technical expertise is required to fill out this application. This is one of the things that really set our program apart from others, the fact that we provide assistance to applicants that demonstrate need. Need is determined by CMAP sliding scale of community need. We offer to manage projects that local municipalities either don't have the capacity or authority to lead by themselves. The county could also lead projects that cross municipal boundaries. This is a contingent on our staff time and availability. The ultimate goal is to have submissions from all municipalities, no matter their ability to develop material for a project application, and to ensure that we get quality projects that we can see through to final construction. Regarding the application form itself, as mentioned, we just ask you to check the boxes that are appropriate and enter descriptions in the text fields as required. Save the final completed fillable form on your computer before uploading, and do not upload a scanned application. At the end of the application period, March 13th of this year, our staff will do a completeness review and notify applicants if they've forgotten to include an attachment. When ready to submit your application form, point your browser to the Invest in Cooke page and click on the button Invest in Cooke 2020 Grant Application. Fill out all the fields. In particular, please provide a concise description of your project. Upload the form. Make sure it's complete and save it before uploading. Make sure all of your supporting documentation is ready and take care that the uploads meet the file size limits. Please refrain from attaching entire plans or large documents. Only attach pertinent pages of plans and documents that support your application. Once your application form and all supporting documents are uploaded, press Submit. You should receive a confirmation email shortly after submitting your application. If you experience any problems, please reach out to us at investincooke.cc@cookecountyil.gov. Do not, however, send us the application via this email. Now I'd like to discuss our project evaluation measures and processes. As mentioned, we'll be making sure that each application is complete and that we have all your required responses. All required documents should be submitted at the time of the application submission, including the completed application, the mayor or chief executive's cover letter, a project area map, project schedule, and the most recent auditor's report or other proof of financial standing. Regarding quantitative measures, we've developed metrics that correspond to the priorities in connecting Cooke County. And as for qualitative measures, we do a staff review of the application, the project description, specific elements and attributes of the project, and ability of the applicant to complete their project. Be aware that all project applications are mapped and sorted by mode type, so that each mode is evaluating using mode-specific metrics particular to that project. As far as the quantitative data that is used, we've sourced data from CMAP, IDOT, UIC Urban Transportation Center, and CNT. Metrics were selected to correspond directly with the priorities in connecting Cooke County. They are also consistent with FHWA and state recommendations. After projects are mapped and sorted by mode, they will be buffered, and count elements within the buffer area will be factored in. The scoring will be 0 to 100, with projects using a percent rank scoring methodology for each metric, in which the highest scoring project will get all the points, the lowest scoring project will get no points, and everything else will be awarded a percentage of the total based on where they are placed along the scale. The goal is to have an understanding of the quantifiable aspects of the places in which these projects are located. Regarding the qualitative assessment, each qualified application receives an interview with 2 of our department's staff evaluators who do an in-depth review of your application. Considerations will include a review of the project's readiness feasibility. Is the schedule reasonable? Are cost estimates reasonable? Do we have confidence in the applicant to complete the project? Is there any opposition in the community to the project? We will also be submitting project applications to some of our partners to weigh in and share their thoughts on the merits of the project. In terms of a review of project benefits, we will be looking to see if the project benefits are reasonable, are they consistent with existing plans within the community, and what elements of the project advance our priorities in our long-range transportation plan. Lastly, we are also looking for not just what the municipality is putting in terms of dollars, but what other sources of funding are being tapped for this project. Beginning last year, we also asked that very low and low need communities, as designated by CMAP, match county funds on at least a 1-to-1 basis. Matches from moderate need communities will be calculated on a sliding scale basis, and very high and high need communities may not need any local match at all. Following are some slides that discuss the last few years of awardees and applicants. The Invest in Cooke program has successfully advanced the county's long-range transportation plan in that each of the funded projects has met at least one of the priorities set in connecting Cooke County. The program puts a premium on equal access to opportunity, the plan's third priority. Half of the projects awarded went to low and moderate income communities. The program has been multimodal. Awards for all 3 years include transit, bike ped, freight, as well as road projects. And the program funds early stage studies all the way through to construction. Many of the projects selected and funded are in the planning or preliminary engineering phases, beginning to create a pipeline of projects that are positioned to be eligible for funding from other sources. Programs make awards in all Cooke County districts. In 2017, 42 municipalities shared in the benefits of some of the awards. In 2018, 33 communities, and in 2019, 27. The county's investment of over $22 million over the 3 years has leveraged an additional $76 million in federal, state, and local funds. This slide shows a graph showing the number of applications received over the last 3 years, as well as the total dollars requested for each of those 3 years. The next slide shows the various mode and project types requested for each of the 3 years. And now I would like to discuss some examples of successful projects. For this portion of the presentation, I would like to turn this presentation over to my colleague, Tomohiko Music.
Hello everyone, this is Tomo Music from Cooke County Transportation and Highways. Just a reminder to everyone that if you guys have any questions about what's been presented already or what we're about to present, please type them in so that we can address them at the very end of this presentation. So I wanted to run through a handful of example projects, not really take too much time, but to give you all kind of a taste for what we're looking for. Basically, as Tim's saying, Invest in Cooke was created as an implementation arm of the long-range transportation plan, and really we're looking to implement on the priorities, the 5 priorities that were identified in that plan. But kind of on top of that, there are these secondary priorities or goals that we had of the program, and one was we wanted to look to see if we could identify kind of a universe of projects that were out there in Cooke County, have a formal process for everyone to submit projects that we may want to participate in, that may help advance our priorities, that we may not otherwise have the ability to access or have the knowledge of. Also, we wanted to establish kind of a pipeline of projects at various stages of project development. So going from very basic feasibility studies to project development, design, and construction. We wanted to have a queue of projects ready to go just in case we ran into any grant opportunities that we thought were ideal for these projects. And also, we wanted to help projects that may be languishing or are at the risk of languishing because of a lack of the availability of local match. So kind of combined with our priorities of the long-range plan and kind of these secondary goals of Invest in Cooke, we've kind of developed a program to kind of help us kind of meet these targets. So this particular project was submitted by Pace Suburban Transit. It's a Harvey and O'Hare South Cargo area first last mile pilot. It's a bit of a mouthful, but we awarded them $125,000 to implement basically a partnership between them and a transportation network company that will allow them to kind of fill gaps in their kind of nighttime service gaps in their service map. So Pace operates only one 24/7 hour route at the moment. It's 352 that runs down Halstead Street between the 95th Red Line station and Harvey Transportation Center. What they were seeing was that people would take this bus either from the Harvey Transportation Center or from 95th Street and then get to the other end and not have any service available to get to either their employment or their home. So they're looking at ways in order to be able to partner with the TNC, maybe subsidize some of the cost coming from that transportation center to either employment or their homes, and giving people kind of a guaranteed ride home and giving them the opportunity to maybe pursue other types of work at unconventional work schedules. The second part of the project was focused around the O'Hare South Cargo area and the CTA Rosemont station. They're finding a lot of users. We're asking for more service to that kind of O'Hare South Cargo area where there are companies that service the airport, which is 24 hours, a lot of nighttime workers there, and no real safe or efficient way to get there without a vehicle. So they're investigating a relationship with a transportation network company, basically to get people back and forth between those two nodes. Really, these things kind of hit on our transit priority, our equity, and bringing kind of more transportation resources to the area. The following project, this is the Burnham Multimodal Connector, is submitted by the Village of Burnham last year. This particular project is a grade separated crossing of 5 railroad tracks that at the intersection of Burnham and Brainerd Avenues in the actually it's at the border of Chicago and the Village of Burnham. Currently there are 2 projects that are in progress. Illinois Department of Natural Resources has a project coming from Avenue O in the north in the city of Chicago south to just north of the aforementioned train tracks at Brainerd and Burnham, and that is scheduled for to begin construction this year. The Village of Burnham has designed a trail extension from State Street in the south up to the railroad tracks and actually crossing the railroad tracks. The problem is that particular project, even though it's been designed, they can't follow through on construction because the railroads do not think that the at-grade crossing of the railroad is unsafe. They have thus far not allowed that to happen, but in initial conversations with them, they were more amenable to allowing that project to proceed if instead of an at-grade crossing, we provided this multimodal grade separated connector, and we awarded them money to begin phase 1. Originally it was $50,000 to do the phase 1, but in further conversations with the village, it was in our best interest to kind of take the lead on this particular project, and we will be issuing an RFP or actually we have a consultant selected. We'll be beginning phase 1 in 2020, and the county is fully committed to funding this project through to construction in 2023. A freight-related project that we received in 2017. It was submitted by the Illinois International Port District for Butler Drive and Stony Island Avenue, from Doty Avenue to 130th Street. IIPD is actually the busiest as far as tonnage goes port on the Great Lakes. It's actually one of the busiest inland ports in the world. Lake freighters and barges, they offload more than 18 million tons of material, and most of this is bulk steel, heavy stuff, sandstone, rock, scrap metal, lumber, petrochemicals as well, some sugar and food products and other industrial products. And these are all things that we prefer to travel on waterways, and in order for that to happen, we need quality port facilities to do that, and we want to be in a position to kind of make sure the port is in the best state possible to maximize the use of and efficiency of the facility. In 2017, we awarded them $300,000 to do the phase 1 engineering of the Butler Drive enhancements. They have drainage issues there. It's impacting the ability of the businesses there to offload freight from the barges onto trucks and vice versa. Proposed improvements will pave these. Right now they seem unpaved, but I think they were paved at some point in the past. And then reconstruct all the kind of drainage infrastructure along the roadway. The staff at Cooke County also helped the port develop an IDOT economic development program application, and the port actually received $2 million for implementation and construction of the project. We also subsequently gave the Port District assistance with developing an application for TIF funding from the city of Chicago, which they also received for improvements at the port. So really this kind of hits on our freight priority, but it also emphasizes kind of hits on our focus on equity, maintaining and modernizing our existing assets, making sure we're making the best use out of them, and bringing more funding to the region and the area. Another freight-related project, which we've funded multiple phases of now, was submitted by the Village of Berkeley for Proviso Drive between Berkeley and Melrose Park. Initially, we awarded the village $342,000 for phase 1 money. That particular project is about to wrap up. They are about to enter into design, which the village is funding itself through a grant that we helped them secure. And subsequently, last year, we awarded them another $275,000 for construction, which will go toward the match for the total construction cost of just over $2 million. The roadway itself is is mostly used by trucks. It's only got about 2,000 to 3,000 vehicles per day, but most of those are trucks and heavy vehicles, and they all serve one of the busiest rail yards in the United States, the Union Pacific Proviso Yard. So we're hoping that this is kind of an economic development piece in a kind of a higher need community that doesn't have the resources available right now to actually reconstruct the roadway. Improvements will include a wider corner radii for truck turning, better drainage, a new facility that will hopefully allow trucks to enter and exit the freight facility more efficiently and more safely. An equity related project that was submitted in 2017 that is about to wrap up now, submitted by South Suburban mayors and managers, is a freight planning, is basically a freight at grade rail crossing planning study for the Dalton and Riverdale area. These villages are disproportionately impacted by delays caused by these crossings, more so than any other place in the rest of the county. And we're really looking for ways to kind of help improve the quality of life for residents there. Another problem with these crossings is they don't have the kind of full breadth of safety equipment, so trains blare horns in order to announce their presence, and part of the study will look at which particular crossings are ideal for safety improvement that will allow the installation of crossing or quiet zone, and also identify potential places where grade separated crossing is more appropriate. And finally, a project kind of hitting on that maintain and modernizing priority is one we funded through the village of Schaumburg around the greater Woodfield Mall area, and basically doing traffic flow improvements. It's not a tremendous project as far as scope goes. It was a $200,000 grant, total $400,000 construction for basically traffic light improvements and light intersection improvements that would allow vehicle traffic to move a little bit more efficiently, improve the safety of the intersections for not just vehicles, but transit services, pedestrians, and bicyclists. And really, I mean, this just goes to bringing our existing assets to their best condition possible, bringing them up to modern standards, and making sure they're kind of future-proofed so that they can continue to function for as long as possible. I think that is it. And with that, I will transfer back over to Tim so that he can talk about the schedule and wrap up the presentation.
Thank you very much, Tomo. I just want to remind people that they can enter their questions now. We will be reviewing those questions and answering them very shortly. So please don't hesitate to submit your questions if you have any. As this slide shows, the program launched recently on January 15th. We've conducted now our second workshop. Actually, I believe that date should be January 30th, which is today. And the applications are due on March 13th. We will conduct our internal evaluation and complete that in May of this year. And then we anticipate going to the Cooke County Board July 30th with the full program of awardees. And immediately after the Cooke County Board meeting, we will notify applicants that they have been awarded, and we will send out draft intergovernmental agreements for their review. I know we have received one question regarding whether an individual can apply for the Invest in Cooke program, and the answer is yes, with the important caveat that there must be a public entity as a partner. A transportation implementing agency must be a partner to any not-for-profit or individual that may apply. I also want to remind everyone that the questions and answers both from the previous workshop last week as well as today and this entire presentation will be available on our website. And if there are no more questions, we will conclude the Invest in Cooke portion of this Skype presentation. Promptly at 2 o'clock, the Department of Planning and Development will begin their presentation. Thank you all for listening. And again, my contact information is there if there's any follow-up questions after this session. Thank you.
Welcome to the second half of this Cooke County Joint Grants Workshop. For the next hour, we will focus on the 2020 Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG, application process for capital improvement, demolition, and economic development projects. My name is Dominic Tossi with Cooke County's Department of Planning and Development, and I will be joined today by my colleague Sylvia Parham. First, some brief housekeeping about our session. The session is being recorded and will be made available online on our website after this session. You should see a question and answer panel to the right or underneath today's presentation screen. Use this panel to ask questions of the presenters. We will reply to as many questions as we can at the end of each session. We will also post all Q&A responses, including ones we might not be able to answer during the live online session. If you did not RSVP for this event and we did not have your email address, we have posted the RSVP form link in the Q&A panel. You can complete that now so we can collect your email address. We will send out a notice when both the video and Q&A responses are posted. Now I would like to begin by focusing on a few highlights for the 2020 application cycle before turning it over to Sylvia to go over the program details. There are 4 items that I want to highlight today. First, new this year, applications must be submitted through the online submission pages. In recent years, applications have been submitted via email, but this year we will not be accepting any email applications. Please use the new online submission pages, and we'll talk more about that later in the presentation. Another important change for this year, in recent years, applicants have been limited to a single CDBG application. This year, nonprofits are able to apply for 1 CDBG capital improvement project and 1 CDBG public service or planning project. This is in response to feedback we've received in recent years on capital improvement needs specific to nonprofit agencies, particularly those that are current CDBG service recipients. So we're excited to provide this opportunity this year for more nonprofits to put forward potential capital improvement projects. Other than nonprofits, there is a limit of 1 CDBG funding application per agency. The third item I want to highlight continues an emphasis on completion of the Fair Housing Survey that we started last year, and this is for municipal applicants only. The Fair Housing Survey, which you can find linked in the application, must be completed by the application due date. And this year we've increased the penalty for not completing the survey by the due date from 5 points to 10 points. And finally, I want to emphasize the application due date and time, which is Friday, March 13th by 5 p.m. Please make sure all applications are submitted by then through the new online submission pages. Now I'd like to turn it over to Sylvia to go through the program and application details.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sylvia Parham, and I'm the grant coordinator with the Department of Planning and Development. I will be going over the highlights with regards to our CDBG Community Development Block Grant Program, application guidelines and requirements. For those of you who are new to the Community Development Block Grant, and this is your first time submitting an application, I'll briefly explain to you the nature of the Community Development Program, which is Cooke County's Department of Planning and Development in coordination with HUD. We award grants to carry out a wide range of community development activities directed towards revitalizing neighborhoods, economic development, and providing improved community facilities and services. And based on those, the nature of the program, we have several areas under our national objective that you will need to meet in order to qualify for the Cdbg program. The first area would be under our benefit to low and moderate income persons. The Cdbg program requires that each activity funded, except for program administration and planning activities, must meet one of the 3 national objectives which are outlined below. That would be the benefit, aid, and need categories. An activity that does not meet a national objective is not compliant with our Cdbg Community Development Block Grant Program. And eligible projects will also be discussed during this process. The area benefit activities include residents in a particular area where there is at least 51% of the people are low moderate income individuals. The service area of the project must be specifically identified, and the area must be primarily residential. For our limited clientele activities, under the benefit low and moderate income persons, with regards to the areas being served, at least 51% of the persons participating in the activity must also be low moderate income, and the activity must meet one of the following criteria. That would be a presumption of low and moderate income or income guidelines activities. Under the perception of low and moderate income, the activity serves persons who are presumed to be low and moderate income, and that would be abused children, battered spouses, elderly persons, and severely disabled adults, homeless persons, illiterate adults, persons living with AIDS, and migrant workers. Under the income guidelines, the activities must have eligibility requirements which limit the activities exclusively to low and moderate income persons, or income must be documented. We also have a category under housing activities, and under housing activities that are undertaken for the purposes of providing or improving permanent residential structures, which upon completion will be occupied by the 51% low moderate income households. Job creation and retention activities are designed to create or retain permanent jobs for at least 51% of which will be made available to or held by lower moderate income persons. Under our aid section, we basically are focusing on the prevention or elimination of slum and blight areas. This prevents or eliminates slum and blight on the area basis, or eliminates specific conditions of blight or physical decay on a spot basis that are not located in slum and blight areas. To meet the need of having a particular urgency, these are particularly our demolition projects, and we use the urgent need national objective category as a rare category. It is designed only for activities that eliminate emergency conditions, and they will be the conditions that are posed towards serious or immediate threats to a health or welfare of a community. In addition, the existing conditions are of recent origin or recently became urgent, and that time span for a recently urgent project would be the past 18 months. Anything beyond that would not be considered urgent. The grantee is unable to finance an activity or on its own is also a category that would meet a particular need of urgency. The next section that we will focus on would be the program eligibility requirements. And the program eligibility requirements are basically Cooke County's currently receiving the Cdbg funds on an annual entitlement allocation basis, and we have to qualify in those areas in Urban County. We have several areas that are not participating under our Cdbg program, and those areas would include Chicago, Evanston, Skokie, Arlington Heights, Des Plaines, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Palatine, Mount Prospect, Schaumburg, Berwyn, Cicero, Oak Park, and Oak Lawn. If you're looking to submit an application in any of these areas, those are the areas that we will not be would not be providing funding towards. We also have approximately 134 municipalities that will qualify under our CDBG program. In addition, we have multiple nonprofit agencies that will also be eligible. We have projects that must be consistent with our Community Development Consolidated Plan, and those are areas that you would have to qualify for as well. Eligible activities under the Capital Improvement Project Program would consist of infrastructure projects, public facility projects, demolition projects. Under our infrastructure projects, improvements include but not limited to construction or installation of streets, curbs, and water sewer lines. Under our public facility projects, those projects include improvements that will not be limited to recreational facilities, parks, playgrounds, and facilities for persons with special needs. Examples of eligible costs include energy efficiency improvements and disabled accessibility improvements. Under the demolition projects, the activities are limited to demolition of vacant buildings, including necessary removal of demolition debris. CDBG fund requests for demolition projects with costs that are equal or exceeds $20,000 per parcel are typically submitted via the annual funding application associated with the funding application guide. In addition to the main application, the final section of the 2020 funding application must also be completed for demolition activities. If you have a larger demolition request on a time-sensitive basis, please contact the Department of Planning and Development for further discussion. Then also we have our census tract and block group. This section is found under our application on page 12. In order for you to qualify for the CDBG program, you must meet the criteria under our census tract and block group information, and that would be 51%. There is a map that will be found on our website that you could pull up the information. If you have any questions with regards to that, you can contact us. I'm just going to go briefly over our special economic development criteria, and that is also a category that will qualify under the Community Development Grant Program. The CDBG funds may be used to undertake the following economic development activities, such as the required public benefit standards being met regarding job creation and retention, or the provisions of goods and services. CDBG funds under this category may result in a minimum level of public benefits in accordance with our HUD standards. On an aggregate basis, the activities must either create or retain at least one full-time equivalent permanent job per 35,000 of CDBG funds used, or provide goods and services to an area where the number of low moderate income persons served by the assistant business amounts to at least one LMI person per $350 of CDBG funds utilized. Under our microenterprise development, workforce development, these are activities designed to foster the development, support, and expansion of microenterprise businesses, which are commercial enterprises with 5 or fewer employees, one of whom owns the enterprise. CDBG support under this category will be limited to nonprofit entities providing eligible microenterprise activities. Eligible activities include the provisions of financial support, technical assistance, and general support to owners of microenterprises and persons developing microenterprises, including child care, transportation, counseling, and peer support groups. So those are the primary eligible requirements under the CDBG program, and I'll briefly just go over some of the prohibited activities. And some of those prohibited activities would be buildings or portions thereof used for the general conduct of government, as including or not including the removal of architectural barriers. It would also include general government expenses, will not include general government expenses, political activities. The CDBG fund shall not be used to finance or use of facilities or equipment for political purposes, or to engage in other partisan political activities such as candidate forums, voters transportation, or voters registration. Additionally, activities that may not be consistent with the CDBG funds would be purchasing of equipment, operating and maintaining expenses. Specific exceptions to this would general rules are operating and maintenance expenses associated with public service activities. New housing construction is also a prohibited activity. That's prohibited activities under CDBG, and income payments. Those are the areas that we will not entertain as a funding source for this program. Again, this is just basically an overview of the eligible project types, and again, that would be the infrastructure, where we have street resurfacing, alley resurfacing, water main and sewer line replacement, bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Under our public facility projects, we would include the recreational park, public parks, ADA compliance playgrounds, energy efficiency improvements, disabled accessibility improvements, and the demolition program, which would be vacant buildings and debris removal and asbestos removal. There is, at one time, we had an exception to our CDBG, and there's no longer an exception. So this year, again, we're at 51% for infrastructure, water and sewer, or flood control projects. In addition, we do have a cap on both of our primary infrastructure and public facilities. There's a $400,000 cap on infrastructure projects, and under the nonprofit funding cap would be $200,000. We ask that you submit one application. If you are a public service agency or a public facility agency, we will allow you to submit an application under the public service side as well as under the public facility side. Our application evaluation criteria will consist of several areas that you will be evaluated under, and the areas that would primarily be the sections that you will receive your awarding based on your scores. We have the project need and justification. Before I get into the project need and justification, I just want to make sure that you are aware that your application must be complete in its entirety. There's a checklist that will be on the front section of it, and if that application is not complete according to the checklist, you will be deducted points, and the first amount of deduction would be minus 15 points. So we encourage you, if you're completing your application, make sure that it's completed in its entirety, because you will be scored based on the completeness of the application. The first category that would be ranked under your application review would be the project need and justification. We look for clear project descriptions, project locations. We can't emphasize enough that you must make sure that the project location is identified, because our staff will go out and review each site prior to making a decision on your application. The summary of the need and justification must be sufficient. We ask that you provide legible maps and photos, and again, that your project is consistent with our current consolidated plan, and the description of the anticipated accomplishments and outcomes are noted. If you have a new and improved access to beneficiary data, make sure that you include that information in your application, because the project need and justification category is worth 35 points. The second category that we will be reviewing your application would be the capacity and skills to execute the project. Under the capacity and skills to execute the project, we ask that you clearly explain the capacity and the skills of your agency's ability to execute the project. And this will include past track records or other documentation to demonstrate capacity. We ask that you describe similar past projects executed and the outcomes. That would be either for CDBG or any other project that you've received federal funding for that you can give us information on. We would also look at your past MBE, WBE, and Section 3 contracting and hiring performance record. We would ask that you explain any outstanding project balances, performance reports, or HUD reports, or unresolved monitoring findings that may have been issued to those applicants who are returning. And again, we ask for the maintenance of efforts and project sustainability. That would be under Form C in the application. Under capacity and skills to execute the project, you will be awarded 25 points depending on having all of the information that we're requesting. Number 3, we're looking at clarity and reasonableness of proposed cost. The project budget must be completed in its entirety. We also ask that you provide a cost estimate that are reasonable, and the cost estimate and budget prepared by a certified architect, engineer, or contractor is what we base most of our scoring on. And the reason we based our scoring on the contractor's information, because from time to time we receive funding requests that are either too low or too high for the actual project to be carried out. The estimates must be prepared within the past 6 months because we want them to be as current as possible. And again, we ask that you have a cost that will reflect prevailing wages and your Davis-Bacon requirements. Under clarity and reasonableness of proposed costs, we would award 10 points. The next category would be leverage of other funding. We ask that you provide a clear description of the matching funds that you are going to submit in your application. Under the CDBG program, it's not a requirement that you provide matching funds, but it is looked upon as favorable in your application. We ask that you complete the estimated matching fund certification. This is basically our signal to let us know that you are certifying your match that you're providing. We ask that you also provide information regarding efforts to secure the funding. And under the CDBG support for leverage, additional investments should be provided if you have any additional investments that will be applied towards this project. Under leveraging other funds, we offer 10 points if that all of the information is correct. The next category is readiness to proceed. We want to make sure that your project is ready to proceed. We are under a strict guideline with regards to the timeline that HUD requires us to start and complete a project. The average time would be 12 months, but in most cases for our community development, infrastructure, and public facility projects, we will extend it up to 18 months with the proper approvals. The project's eligible information must be complete and accurate. We ask that you provide a summary of project's readiness contained with needed information. We ask that you provide a start and completion date and that it is clearly defined. You will not receive any points for this, but you will receive negative points if all of the information is not provided. So that could be up to -15. The next category is broader context of projects. The proposed projects advances of broader plan vision, such as plans created by CMAP or RTA programs or our Rain Ready programs. So if you have a project that's connecting to either of those agencies, that would be considered a broader context project. We also ask that it connects to a target area or recent investments, that it would support or reflect regional or sub-regional collaboration, that it is consistent with our On to 2050 program, and that it's in connection with the Invest in Cooke or United Way's neighborhood network in Blue Island, Robbins. The capital improvement contemplates stormwater impacts incorporated in resilient features and or considered complete street concepts. We also ask that it provide bicycle, pedestrian, public transit, and also contains innovation or creative elements. And economic development activities also are impacted with regards to the broader context. And in recent applications, we've also received requests on green infrastructure, so we will also be highlighting some of the green infrastructure projects that may be submitted. We have a fair housing category that we ask you to provide a fair housing action plan. And this is one of the areas that we made mandatory last year. So we're asking that you complete this because this section will be completed on an annual basis. So if you have not completed the Municipal Fair Housing Survey, we ask that you complete that by the due date, which is March 13th, 2020 of this year with your application. If we do not receive the Fair Housing Action Plan, again, you will not receive any points for that, but it will be negative points submitted. And last but not least, we're looking at the financial capacity, and the financial capacity would come in the form of your most recent audit. We ask if you can provide us with the most recent audit or any other financial records such as a 990 that would be conducive to your agency. The audit again must be current, and it must explain any unresolved audit findings that you have or any corrective actions that you may have implemented as a result of. The financial capacity section again is minus 10 points. So that concludes the section with regards to our application evaluation criteria. And we're going to move forward with basically a few of our success stories. For those individuals that are new, we just wanted to give you an example of some of the projects that we've carried out throughout the course of our Cdbg program. And our first success story is a street improvement project that we were tasked with completing for Paul Revere Primary School, and it was also a residential area that was near that section. We were approached by the city of Blue Island and asking for assistance with making sure that the road was provided as a safe structure or for resurfacing before the school year began. We were able to move forward with providing the fundings, and the project was a success. We were able to complete the resurfacing project and make it safe and accessible for the students to return and the residents to have safe streets. Our Cdbg award was $200,000 for the project, and I believe the total project was over $400,000, and the city provided the remaining funds. The second success story was a public facility project. These are pictures of the before. It was basically a warehouse that was transformed into a career center. This project was located in Hillside, and it was a facility that housed developmentally disabled adults. And based on the information that was provided from the facility, they put a high level of emphasis on the level of employment rates based on persons with disabilities and those persons without disabilities. And if you notice that there's 36% of employment rates amongst persons with disability compared to the 74% employment rate among persons without disabilities. So the facility decided that they wanted to do a career center to assist those developmentally disabled individuals with being more marketable, and the training center would bring them more close to a real life setting opposed to just going into vanilla box settings. This is the outcome of the public facility project. The Career Training Center, as a result of the work that was done, we were able to provide 6 industries that would be addressed in this training facility. And those would be in the areas of food services, hotel and hospitality, fitness center administration, office management, information technology, warehouse, and distribution. The CDBG program was able to award $100,000, but again, this was just a portion of, we were leveraging our resources with other sources, and I believe the total amount of this particular portion was close to $500,000 or more. We are still in the process of working on expanding this project. We just recently did a project in 2017, and we're finishing up a project in 2018 where we expanded the kitchen, and we also will be doing a laundry facility where they would have training on laundry for hospitals. This is a picture of the reception area, and then we also have a section where we have the food service area. They basically prepare food and they learn how to serve individuals in that particular section. So then we also moved on to our third success story, which is the Demolition Project. We have a project here that was in unincorporated Cooke County. We worked with the City of Chicago Heights to assist us with the demo process. We were able to filter our funding through the City of Chicago Heights because it was an unincorporated area, but we wanted to make sure that we cleared this site and make it a safe health to eliminate all of the health and safety concerns that were there, and prepare it for redevelopment. So this slide basically shows the end results. It was not an expensive project. We awarded the project a little over $19,000, but we actually came in with the cost below that at $17,900. So pretty much we did talk about the demolition area eligibility criteria. So we have the slum and blight basis and the urgent need basis. And again, to emphasize that under urgent need, the project must not be over 18 months in order for you to qualify for it. So if you have any projects that are within that range, we can qualify them under urgent need. And then last but not least, we have the economic development eligibility criteria, which I spoke about earlier, and the micro enterprise. And these are, again, some of the sections that would qualify you for those. Those are some of our newer projects that we are working on. We have a couple of projects in the queue right now under economic development, and it will be something that we may talk about in our next workshop. So again, just to go briefly over the 2020 funding updates, our cycle, as Dominic mentioned earlier, the CDBG applications must be submitted utilizing the online submission this year. We will not by no means accept any email or paper copies. So therefore, please go in and complete the submission page, pull up the application, and make sure that it's completed in its entirety. Remember to make sure that your application is consistent with the current Community Development Block Cooke County Consolidated Plan and Policy Road Mapping. We also want to make sure that you look at the geographic focus on the southern suburbs of 2020 application cycle, and this would be our SSEGI, South Suburban Economic Growth Initiative. We are increasing our focus on our Section 3 and MBE, WBE performance levels. We would hopefully have more workshops on those areas as well. We're emphasizing the regional collaboration, again, with the ON2 2050 and our comprehensive regional plan. So to make sure that you're aware, again, the area benefit threshold is 51% for all capital improvement projects. Be sure to go on to the 2011-2015 ACS website. If you have any questions with regards to accessing that, please reach out to us and we'll make sure that we walk you through the process to determine whether or not your projects are eligible as means of the census tract and block group information. And then finally, we have the program funding cycle and timeline, which is for our Community Development Block Grant. Our program year starts October 1st of 2020 for this particular application. and the ending of the program year would be September 30th, 2021. Our applications was live online starting in January, starting this month, and our first workshop was January 24th, and today is our webinar, so we'll be completing the webinar. And the major reminder is all applications are due on March 13th, 2020 by 5 p.m. So therefore, make sure you upload your information, your submission information, and your application by the deadline. No applications will be accepted after that time, so therefore it's vitally important that you include the information as soon as possible. I recommend that you don't wait until the deadline, because we will not accept any walk-ins, we will not accept any emails. So if you miss that deadline and your submission is not uploaded, we will not process your application. Again, our application review period will begin in April. Well, I want to make sure that you remember to include addresses for your infrastructure projects, because we will have to conduct site inspections prior to the review, and the review period will extend through May 2020. We will be submitting all recommended projects to our county board for approval in July, and we anticipate issuance of the subrecipient agreements in August of 2020. Things to remember: must be consistent with planning for progress and our Cook County's consolidated plan. Your application must meet a national objective, and project selected activities must be eligible. All required documents must be submitted per the application checklist. So when you go in and look at the application, please be sure that you check every box and that you attach the documentation that's required for that particular section. Last but not least, double check the census tract and block group information, and please make sure that your 51% is low mod income area data according to the 2011-2015 ACES website. Here's the link. If you have questions, you can contact myself or my colleagues, and we will walk you through how to access that particular website. Then finally, we have the application review section. This is where the application and the submission form is located. You can click on that website and it will take you here. We ask that you review the Cdbg grant page, which would be that's the very first one, which would be the submission page. The 2020 Cdbg application guide will basically provide you with the information that I just went over. It'll give you more details. So if you have questions, you can review the guide and it will give you the full details that were just mentioned during this presentation. And then under 2, you would have to prepare the application. And as you prepare the application, please be sure to upload any information that's required as you complete your submission page. This is basically the second page of the submission. Again, as I mentioned, make sure that you upload all of the required application information, provide descriptions, project types, and resolutions and certifications are vitally important. Make sure that you review and have that information submitted by your board. I believe most of you have a certain timeline that you have to get the application into your board for review and approval. Make sure that you do that in a timely manner so you won't miss out on the deadline date for submitting your application. So again, at this time, we're going to ask if you have any questions, please submit your questions, and we will proceed with answering them. We have one question, and the question is, can I apply for a Cdbg grant? I have a roof on my home. And the response to that is, no, we don't have a program that will cover home replacement or home repairs, but if you have questions with regards to that, please feel free to contact myself or my colleagues, and our contact information is here. So you can contact Dominic Tassi, which is our Deputy Director, myself, Tim Kleiss, who is one of our project managers, or Lisa Carey, who is the Administrative Analyst. And if you have any other questions, you can submit them now. And before we sign off, we'll try to go through that. Thank you for joining us for our 2020 CDBG Capital Improvement Information Session. Please make sure to visit our website to find all information, grant materials, and the online application. We will also be posting the materials and recording from this session. If you have RSVP'd to the session, we will send out an email to notify you when the new materials are posted. Again, thank you so much for participating in our webinar, and good luck on your application. Thank you. Bye-bye.